As many of you know, if you listen to my channel, I deeply love Rumi, and I love his poetry, and I wish I could do videos on almost every one of his beautiful, amazing poems, and I thank Coleman Barks for his great renderings and translations of Rumi that I use. And so today I wanted to read this poem and just comment on it through as it goes. It's called Muhammad and the Huge Eater. Husam demands that we begin Book V, the radiance of truth. Husamuddin, master to the pure masters, if my throat were not so narrow, I would praise you as you should be praised, in some language other than this word language. But a domestic fowl is not a falcon. We must mix the varnish we have and brush it on. I'm not talking to materialists. When I mention Husam, I speak only to those who know spiritual secrets. Praise is simply drawing back the curtain to let his qualities in. The sun, of course, remains apart from what I say. What the sayer of praise is really praising is himself, by saying implicitly, my eyes are clear. Likewise, someone who criticizes himself, who criticizes is criticizing himself, saying implicitly, I can't see very well with my eyes so inflamed. I like that because just the act of showing praise in itself of love and devotion already means that you can see clearly because you're at that point that you're doing it. Where the person who criticizes all things and all people and spiritual concepts is really criticizing themselves in that instant by saying, I can't understand. I can't see very well. My eyes are very inflamed. I don't know the truth. And then it says, don't ever feel sorry for someone who wants to be the sun, that other sun, the one that makes rotten things fresh. So don't feel sorry for somebody who gives up what this world wants in search of oneness, in search of God, in search of the truth. And don't ever envy someone who wants to be this world. Don't envy the person obsessed by riches, fame, fortune, money, property, prestige, ego. Don't envy that person, because as you know from your own life, there's great pain associated in clinging to those things. There's great pain inherent in that attachment. Husam is the sun. He can't be understood with the mind or said, but will stumble and stagger trying to. He's using Husam, which was his scribe, as a substitute for God, or that oneness. That's why he says Husam is the sun. Just because you can't drink all that falls doesn't mean you give up taking sips of rainwater. If the nut of the mystery can't be held, at least let me touch the shell. So at least let us get on track. If we don't really understand fully how it is, we can't comprehend or talk about the deepest mysteries of the universe, at least let us taste a little bit of it. At least let us do a little bit that we can to bring into that oneness. Husam, refresh my words, your words. My words are only a husk to your knowing, an earth atmosphere to your enormous spaces. What I say is only meant to point to that, to you, so that whoever hears these words will not grieve that they never had a chance to look. So I think it's funny and playful what he says there, is that whoever has read this, whoever is listening to this and hears these words, can never grieve that they never had a chance to look, that nobody ever talked to them about the Dharma, about truth, about spirit, about God. So coming across these readings, coming across these words, you've been got your grace. The grace of God has shined upon you enough to show you this. And therefore don't ever lament that you were never on your deathbed, that you were never given a chance to seek the truth. Your presence draws me out from vanity and imagination and opinion. Awe is the salve that will heal our eyes, and keen, constant listening. Stay out in the open like a date palm, lifting its arms. Don't bore mouse holes in the ground, arguing inside some doctrinal labyrinth. That intellectual warp and woof keeps you wrapped in blindness, and 4 other characteristics keep you from loving. The Quran calls them 4 birds. Say Bismillah in the name of God and chop the heads off those mischief birds. So the doctrinal labyrinth, he's saying, don't get caught in, because throughout history there's so many different religions and sects and religions within religions and dogmas, and he's saying don't get caught in the intellect fully and arguing about what because none of our words even close to grasp that true reality of God. So don't get so caught in trying to say if my understanding beats your understanding or my way is more right than your way. It keeps you trapped because it's all in mind. That's all in mind. And after he says, chop the heads off those birds, the rooster of lust, the peacock of wanting to be famous, the crow of ownership, and the duck of urgency. Kill them and revive them in another form, changed and harmless. So, lust, which is, of course, sexual lust and lust for object, sense gratification, whatever, which goes into wanting. And wanting is a weird one because we don't think what's wrong with wanting, but that wanting is the pain. And Stephen Levine says that in his book, Gradual Awakening. When you want something so bad and then you get it, you're not actually satisfied because you got it. You're happy because that intense wanting that you were suffering from is relieved for a second, is gone. So only one free from wanting, only one that has given up want, which I by no means have, but I am on this path, is one that is simple and calm enough for the truth of God to come into their being. One that, as Rumi says, only if you've kept your wanting still for 50 years do you begin to cross over. Do you begin to awaken to that deeper truth. So wanting and desire keep the mind inflamed. They keep it inflamed. It's simply what they do. And it takes a lot of practice to calm that incessant wanting. And wanting to be famous, Rumi says, is a big one. And that doesn't mean you have to want to be a celebrity, but just wanting to be well known, wanting to be famous in my social circle, wanting to be well known at the places that I go, wanting to be appreciated, wanting to be talked about, wanting to be listened to. The crow of ownership, that's possession, the attachment of mind, clinging all this stuff to be mine, claiming all this stuff as my own. The crow of ownership, these are hard ones to get over. So he says, cut the head off. And the duck of urgency. I love the duck of urgency because I'm urgent. It's urgent that I make this video. It's urgent that I meditate. It's urgent that I read the books. It's urgent this and urgent that, even though I'm an internal being beyond space, beyond time. But urgency. So he says, kill them. Kill the duck of urgency. You make less progress in urgency than in calm and in peace and in contentment. There's a duck inside you. Her bill is never still, searching through dry and wet alike, like the robber in an empty house, cramming objects in his sack. Pearls, chickpeas, anything. Always thinking there's no time. I won't get another chance. This is the duck of urgency, rushing to do things. A true person is more calm and deliberate. He or she doesn't worry about interruptions. And you practice some little things, like when I'd be reading a book and my girlfriend would say something to me, or my dog, and I'm like, oh, interruption. But this verse helped me to understand, like, be calm and deliberate. Don't worry. Be here now. These whole books you're reading are to make you more present, to be more loving and aware. So, like, give your dog or your girlfriend the time and attention, because that's why you're doing this work in the first place, to be more loving to beings. But that duck is so afraid of missing out that it's lost all generosity. It's greedy. It keeps things for itself. Frighteningly expanded its capacity to take in food, because food's a huge one. We overeat tremendously, and under stress, under anxiety, we eat food to fill cravings. The famous A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, who started the Hare Krishna movement, said, one who controls the tongue can control all else, because he said even more than sex, the tongue is the most ravenous of desires. And it's hard to one to beat, because you could just not do drugs or not gamble. You can't not eat, so you have to control it, or not, which a lot of us can't. Now I will continue just reading through the poem for a little bit. A large group of unbelievers once came to see Muhammad, knowing he'd feed them. Muhammad told his friends, "Divide these guests among you and tend to them. Since you are filled with me, it will be as though I am the host." Each friend of Muhammad chose a guest, but there was one huge person left behind. He sat in the entrance of the mosque like thick dregs in a cup. So Muhammad invited the man to his own household, where the enormous son of a Guz Turk ate everything, the milk of 7 goats, and enough food for 18 people. The others in the house were furious. When the man went to bed, the maid slammed the door behind him and chained it shut, out of meanness and resentment. Around midnight, the man felt several strong urges at once. But the door! He works it, puts a blade through the crack, nothing. The urgency increases. The room contracts. He falls back into confused sleep and dreams of a desolate place, since he himself is such a desolate place. So dreaming he's by himself, he squeezes out a huge amount and another huge amount. But he soon becomes conscious enough to know that the covers he gathered around him are full of shit. He shakes with spasms of the shame that usually keeps men from doing such things. He thinks, "My sleep's worse than my being awake. The waking's just full of food. My sleep, all this, is all this." Now he's crying, bitterly embarrassed, waiting for dawn and the noise of the door opening, hoping that somehow he can get out without anyone seeing him as he is. I'll shorten it. The door opens. He's saved. Muhammad comes at dawn. He opens the door and becomes invisible, so the man won't feel ashamed, so he can escape and wash himself and not have to face the door opener. Someone completely absorbed in Allah like Muhammad can do this. Muhammad had seen all that went on in the night, but he held back from letting the man out until all had happened as it needed to happen. Many actions which seem cruel are from a deep friendship. Many demolitions are actually renovations. So this is interesting, and I talk about this in other videos. Muhammad could have got him out, but he knew that for the man's spiritual growth, that humiliation in this whole process, and that we'll finish in the poem, had to be like that. It had to happen that way for his growth. So even though Muhammad could see it, he had to only play his role. And it says there, many actions which seem cruel are from a deep friendship, because I might not realize that when it's happening, but that is exactly what I need to be let out into the openness of my spirit, just as this man did. So you don't always know the ultimate reason for the occurrence of things. Later, a meddlesome servant brought Muhammad the bedclothes. "Look what your guest has done." Muhammad smiles, himself a mercy given to all beings. "Bring me a bucket of water." Everyone jumps up. "No, let us do this. We live to serve you. This is the kind of handwork we can do. Yours is the inner heart work." "I know that, but this is an extraordinary occasion." A voice inside him is saying, "There is great wisdom in washing these bedclothes. Wash them." Meanwhile, the man who soiled the covers and fled is returning to Muhammad's house. He has left behind an amulet that he always carried. He enters and sees the hands of God washing his incredibly dirty linen. He forgets the amulet. A great love suddenly enters him. He tears his shirt open. He strikes his head against the wall and the door. Blood pours from his nose. People come from other parts of the house. He's shrieking, "Stay away." He hits his head. "I have no understanding." He prostrates himself before Muhammad. So, see, he woke up through this grace because he's seen what he had done, and that Muhammad, this beautiful holy being, is cleaning his dirty linens without complaint. And that was the outer act that opened him up into the inner spirit. And so I encourage anyone listening to this, Rumi's poetry, Hafiz's poetry, stories of Maharaji, beautiful stories and readings. They're important to read St. John of the Cross, the Christian mystics, because they bring you in to the spirit, to this love and truth. Stories like this really open you. They can. People come shrieking, "Oh, you are the whole. I'm a despicable, tiny, meaningless piece. I can't look at you." He's quiet and quivering with remorse. Muhammad bends over and holds him and caresses him and opens his inner knowing. So Muhammad had this power to open up a door into truth through him. The cloud weeps, and then the garden sprouts. The baby cries, and then the mother's milk flows. The nurse of creation has said, let them cry a lot. This rain weeping and sun burning twine together to make us grow. Keep your intelligence white hot and your grief glistening, so your life will stay fresh. Cry easily like a little child. Let body needs dwindle and soul decisions increase. Diminish what you give your physical self, your spiritual eye will begin to open. When the body empties and stays empty, God fills it with musk and mother of pearl. That way a man gives his dung and gets purity. So an interesting thing with that is fasting. Try in the mornings before you meditate, before you pray, before you do a spiritual reading, fast that morning for a few hours and see if it doesn't bring you deeper into that spirit by cleaning you out. And it could also mean other ways of letting your bodily needs dwindle, just like your focus and obsession with bodily needs. But try it with food. This is what I've been recently experimenting with. And I'm not very powerful, so I can't do full day fast, but even part of a day, it clears you out. It's very interesting. Rumi says, when you're full of food and drink, a metal statue sits where your heart should be. But when the body and mind is burning clean with fasting, good habits sprout up and arise. So it's an interesting thing to work on. Listen to the prophets, not to some adolescent boy. So he's saying, listen to people like Rumi, to spiritual teachers about how to live your life. Don't listen to your homie or your friend or your drunk family member that's very wise or whatever. Listen to people that have seen beyond all that. The foundation and the walls of the spiritual life are made of self-denials and disciplines. So it's not going to be easy. Although, some newer age spirituality techniques can tell you, it's all easy, it's all fun, it's all nice, you don't have to struggle, you just got to be present. Any being that has attained any level of spiritual growth, even the ones that tell you, well, you're already God, you just got to have that present moment awareness, almost all went through severe disciplines, austerities, self-denials, because they had to do that to turn away from the world to get into that oneness. And some of them, even if it doesn't seem like they did that in this lifetime, they probably did it in other lifetimes building up to this incarnation. So it does take that. Don't deny it. Don't trick yourself into thinking it doesn't. Stay with friends who support you in these. Talk with them about sacred texts. Talk with them about how you're doing and how they're doing. And keep your practices together. So, stay with people with books. For me, it's a lot of reading, a lot of listening to, a lot of going to 12-step recovery meetings and speaking with others who also work on spiritual practices, who discuss these things, who've been down these paths, who are either before or ahead of me, and keep them and keep our practices together as a support group for you to grow. And if you don't have it in your life, people like that, you could reach out to people, or you could find it in books, movie, literature. And when you read these great beings, they're with you just as if you had, maybe not as powerful as if you had met them in person, but they are with you, and more powerfully than maybe human beings that are actually in front of you in your daily life. So that was a beautiful poem by Rumi, and I thank you for listening to the rendering, and I hope you can get something out of the comment. And remember, if you want a copy of this, it's The Essential Rumi by Coleman Barks. May God be with you. And now here's a break with a message from our sponsors. Are you tired of paying too much to H&R Block or others to prepare your tax return? Are you finally done pulling your hairs out over TurboTax or worrying about whether you completed your Form 1040 correctly? Well, worry no longer. With Momcilovic Tax and Accounting, you're in great hands. With over 35 years of experience and over 250 clients to show for, CPA Mile Momcilovic is the accountant you can trust. Straightforward, inexpensive, professional. All it takes is 3 easy steps. Step 1, email or text us for more information. Step 2, receive an invite email to load your data. Step 3, review and sign your returns electronically in a safe and secure way. The best part about it, he can do your taxes and accounting no matter what state you're in. If you want a knowledgeable licensed expert, he's your guy. With tax returns starting at $125 for single filers and $150 for joint filers. You are guaranteed a fair price and excellent service. Stop the worrying and leave it up to the professional. Email Mile at info@momsilvicaccounting.com, text him at 773-578-0996, or go to momsilvicaccounting.com. Website link and contact information can be found in the description below. To learn more, follow Mom Silvic Tax and Accounting on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn. Also, if you have any tax or accounting related questions, feel free to contact Mile free of charge. Start your journey of a stress-free tax season today.